Get off your ash. That's right, you heard me. Confronting what happened to us in the past in order to understand who we are in the present so we can be who we want to be in the future. It's time to stop allowing what happened to you yesterday to continue affecting what you do and who you are today. This podcast is going to challenge you and push you outside of your comfort zone. So, if you're ready to get off your ash, let's go. Hey, everybody, and welcome back to the Get Off Your Ash podcast. And today's guest is, well, she's awesome. And her husband have become really good friends of Karen and I. And I'm so glad that she's on today. Sherry, welcome to Get Off Your Ash.
Thank you, Joe. I'm so glad to be here as we sit on our ashes.
Okay, you went there already. It's going to be that kind
I went
of
there
interview.
already.
Okay, it's going to be fun.
We're going to have to be careful on this one.
Well, I've been doing it long enough. I've kind of learned how to say it and where to put the emphasis to not freak people out.
So I may have to watch what I say then.
You're my guest. You can say whatever you want.
Yeah.
Well, Sherry and her husband, Todd, have been on this journey since the beginning with me. And her husband was my first guest on the podcast because he was instrumental in coming up with the name for the book, and he did the drawing on the cover. And I still remember, Sherry, being at your place, the four of us. Yeah. Remember that night, the four of us was just sitting around and talking, and I kind of had this burden for this book idea. And I'll never forget when Todd said, 1 second. And he gets up and I'm like, what's his problem? Where's he going?
Little rude, just jumping out of the table.
I thought, what was in the food? He just got up and ran away. But he came back up, and then everything else just took off from there. And so
that was one night I will never forget. There's certain times, like we've been together, I don't know how many times, but I will never forget that night because you could just sense like something was happening. God was doing something. There was just this synergy between you and Todd, and you were just pinging off of each other. And it was really an exciting night. And seeing the fruit of that happening, even this podcast, just so many things that God is doing using that message and how you've written it to getting it out there. Awesome.
It's been really interesting because when you start talking about the topic about dealing with your past and kind of dredging up things that happened to you, it's amazing how many people come out of the woodwork and start to share their stories, and how even the conversation, it's a starter because the book title is funny, it's a little cheeky, but it gets them talking about it, and that's the most important thing.
Yeah.
On the way back here to the house, I was just thinking about the first time I met you and Todd. Do you remember by any chance where and when that was?
Oh, was it at Lake Point or was it at Brayside?
No, it was actually at Huntley Street.
Oh yeah. Oh, actually, yes. Yeah.
Remember, I was sitting
That's
eating,
right.
And you and Todd came up to me and said, "Hey, don't mean to bug you. Heard you at Brayside, loved your stuff," and kind of went on your way. I thought, okay.
Oh yeah. No. I was like hounding you for some answers there because I heard you talking about your book, Story in the Stars. And my daughter is a complete star geek. She has always been obsessed with the constellations and stars. And when I heard you talking about how, that's a whole other show, but your Story in the Stars, I was blown away. I knew my daughter would love it. And so I was listening in intently. And I forgot about that. That's exactly where we met. That was the
first time. You're talking about Story in the Stars. Today, NASA released some really interesting information. They had a theory, but they couldn't really see it until very recently. They say that Jupiter is the size that it is because it's a planet eater. So they have been able to break through the cloudy atmosphere of Jupiter before, but there was a break and they were able to get a deeper analysis. And they said they found evidence of other planets embedded in Jupiter. So it's a planet eater. I thought, wow, that is so cool.
That is so crazy. So crazy.
Thank God we're almost 1 billion kilometers away from it. So we should be out of its hunger strike area.
There you go. Well, that book was really amazing too. So you've got a lot of great resources out there for people.
I mean, that was a real departure from what people had known me for, right? Doing the Hebraic roots and then going to Story in the Stars, and now Get Off Your Ash is another departure, but that's so what the book is all about, is being willing to be uncomfortable and say, I'm going to try new things. I'm not going to be pigeonholed into one thing and let other people's
Mhm.
opinions about me kind of, form who I'm going to be.
Yeah.
And so before we get into, the content of the show today, I mean, I know you, Karen and I, we know you guys and we love you guys, but tell us a little bit about your, your personal and ministry background. Tell us a little bit about Sherry Stahl and, how you kind of got to be who you are today.
Okay. Well, do we go way back? Because I grew
As
up
far
in
as you
this
want.
crazy drag racing family, and I think that completely influenced who I am today. I I'm this girl who loves to dress up, but is quite the tomboy, and that's been my personality since I was a young child. And car loving, just went to the races last weekend. I love that. Yet I love helping women. I have I don't know, there's so many things. I have been a business owner in the automotive tier one industry in the
I
past, a
didn't know that.
co-owner there.
I didn't know
Yeah.
that.
You
Okay.
didn't know that. Okay.
No, we
Yeah.
never talked
Yeah.
about that. Okay.
Yeah, no, that's in my past. And that's like, we're always
Mhm.
changing, evolving. God's continually working in us. Yeah, I would say I'm a serial entrepreneur. I love business. That's why I love doing
Okay.
business consulting. I'm always doing business consulting on the side. But for the last 9 years, since I released my first book, Water in the Desert, after going through divorce, life has
Mm,
changed, where God put me on this trajectory of
mm.
reaching people, speaking, doing so many different things. And that's been my life for the last, 9 years. And I am loving it, actually
Okay.
walking in my calling. So that's a bit about me.
Okay. So you had to get off some ash.
Oh, I I had a mountain of ash.
Let's talk about that a little bit. Whatever you're
Mhm.
comfortable talking about in terms
Yeah.
of past stuff.
I think I don't know if sometimes we have a few different piles of the burnt stuff in our life, of where there's been
Mhm.
some devastation. And I think different circumstances, things that happened when I was a kid, left real insecurities in me. And
Mhm.
I would venture to guess and say that those insecurities, that ash heap of insecurity, not knowing who I was, not fully understanding my identity in Christ, even as a Christ follower, I
Mhm.
did not grasp um, that how much he loved me, how much he accepted me. And talking about that was really difficult for me to fully understand who I was and how valuable I was in his sight. And so that led to a lot of other ash heaps in my life. I think
Sure.
because I walked in that, and I had wonderful friends that recognized this. I think the first was my friends Kevin and Wendy Pauls, friends of
Mhm.
yours too,
Yeah.
and they have been so good to me and working with me on that. My roommate from Bible college, our first year Bible college, she recognized like I had such low self-esteem that she actually used to make me pray with her every night before I
Mm.
went to bed. It was like she was my mom.
Yeah.
And she would make me pray, Lord, help me see me the way you see me. And I would have to quote Psalm 139:14. I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Your
Yeah.
works are wonderful, Lord. I know it full well. And if
Mhm.
I didn't say it in a way that she felt that I was starting to in some way understand it, she would
Right.
like make me repeat it. And I thank Bonnie
Yeah.
like endlessly for putting that, because that I really believe was the seed bed for God to do this healing in my life, where
Mhm.
confidence could come, and not confidence in myself, but confidence in him, who he's called me to be.
Yeah.
So that was a huge
D-
ash heap in my life.
Insecurity. That's,
Insecurity,
you know,
huge.
it's crazy. People would look at someone like you or myself and say, hey, you guys are somewhat successful. I mean, you seem pretty confident about yourself. You speak in front of large groups and you travel and do all this. And they think, oh, you've never wrestled with insecurity. Look at your life and all this. And there's a chapter in the book called Don't Covet Your Neighbor's Ash.
Mm,
Like, just because she makes it look easy, there's years of work to make it look easy.
yes.
Has that been the case
And
for
years
you?
of healing,
Yeah. Yeah.
counseling, you know, eyes bawling out at the altar, letting God heal me. But lots of counseling to get over issues and struggles that I've had in my life, that those hard fought battles are why you can be doing what you're doing, why I can be doing what I'm doing. It's letting God really heal those areas that helped. I think the next biggest ash heap in my life was definitely my first marriage that was unhealthy from the get-go, from the honeymoon day. Just really unhealthy for me, unhealthy for my children. And unfortunately, because of those insecurities that I did have, I stayed way, way, way too long, endured too much. And that left me in a deeper level of insecurity, brokenness, feelings of rejection, unworthiness, that I was unlovable. So many, such brokenness that came into my life, a lot as the result of the broken marriage, and then a crazy divorce situation. It really broke me in a different way. It was the very first time in my life that I questioned God. And really the only time, I don't know, like maybe bits here and there,
Sure.
maybe over finances, like, God, how come?
Where are you? Yeah.
Yeah. The wealthy minister issue kind of thing. But that, going through that, really rocked me to my core of being able to trust God. I remember thinking about the verse Romans 8:28, which I had quoted my whole life up until that time. And then I literally wanted to throw the Bible against the wall and say, I don't know, I didn't throw the Bible against the wall, but I literally yelled at God and said, your word is not true. This Romans 8:28 does not pan out, because I've been living for you and this is not working out. You're not working all things for my good. And I absolutely did not believe that he was going to turn things around in my life. I thought pretty much my life was over when I went through divorce. But I think if we can get to that point in our lives, it's really difficult, but you can see Job goes through that. I know you've gone through that point.
Sure have.
And Habakkuk went through that too. And I think there's some verses in Habakkuk that God spoke to me when I was in that.
Okay.
And it's, Habakkuk is in an agricultural society, and he says, everything was going wrong. They were in captivity. And he said, though the fig tree withers, though the crops fail, it's talking about this like total economic loss, this crisis in every way, shape, or form. And he says, and yet I will praise you. And I remember God asking me, like, in this brokenness, can you say that? And it took, I don't know how long, like, it took a bit for me to get to be able to say, okay, it was not that day. Let's just say it was a while. Yeah.
Well, when you talked about, being so angry, wanting to throw the Bible against the wall, saying this isn't true, we've all had those moments with God. That's it. We're done. I'm pulling a Jonah. I'm going the other way. We're finished. Don't talk to me. And it's like we have this teenager moment. Where
I think it's more like a toddler. I was having like a toddler moment, honestly.
Well, from toddler to teenager, when you talk about, oh, I hate you, and you say all this stuff out of your hurt and your brokenness, and a mature, loving parent knows you don't hate them, knows you're not angry, just says, just go ahead, get the poison out, extract it. When you're done, I'm here, no judgment. We're just going to pick it back up. And I think that, those of us who have gone through a lot of ash, we've had those angry seasons with God, and we think, how can he still love me after the way I treated him, the way I thought about him, and and spoke of him?
Yeah.
Which feeds back into our insecurity.
Absolutely. And the enemy will use any of that to just like twist at us and like, make us feel like we're less than. And, if we had better faith and more faith, we would have got through that better. We wouldn't have questioned. And it's like, no, it is a part of your journey. It's a part of my journey, part of most people's journey, where there is some issue where you really just get to the point where you feel like you can't go any further. And I don't, hopefully it's not at the beginning of your faith walk, because I think, it would be really difficult then. But for me, I had really a great faith journey by that point.
Yeah.
I saw God do miracles. I saw him do great things in my life. So,
Hmm.
it really took a lot to rattle me to the core. And it took a while to come back from that, but it's amazing when you take that brokenness to
Hmm.
God, when you just lay it at his feet, you recognize the ash heap, you don't deny it, you deal with it, you let him
Hmm.
work on it, then he will really clean things up and set you in a new place.
That's good. And I just think for a second, you, me, anybody, watching or listening to this, think of what your life would have been like. Think of all the people who wouldn't benefit from your experience if you had
Mhm.
just sat on that ash and said, you know what, the world sucks, God sucks. I'm just going to sit here, woe is me, until the day I die. Imagine what you would have robbed the world of had you not gotten off that ash and said, Lord, I repent, like Job, for sitting in dust and ash. I'm going to get up and I'm going to trust you. Just could you imagine your life being
Oh,
any
I don't
different?
want to imagine my life if I stayed on the ash heap. And unfortunately, I went through divorce care when I was single, when I was separated and
Mm,
then divorced. It was such a great program, but there were people in there, and there's some that I'm still, know, and they're still sitting on that same ash heap and
right?
sitting in that woundedness, that
Yeah.
brokenness. And I see the perpetuating of the brokenness in their life. And it's honestly, I am not perfect by any stretch of the imagination.
Hmm.
I do not live a perfect life. There's just, life is life. There's constantly struggles. But if I would have stayed on that ash heap,
Yeah.
I like, it's unbelievable. So if I wouldn't have gone off the ash heap of feeling unloved, if I would not have opened my heart
Hmm.
up to, to open up and to trust Todd, even though I felt God telling me he was going to be my husband one day, if I wouldn't have taken that chance, got off that ash heap of, feeling unlovable, I wouldn't be in this healthy marriage, and my kids,
Yeah.
wouldn't have been able to see this, and his kids, there's so much in our
Hmm.
personal lives,
Hmm.
and, I wouldn't be emotionally whole. And, when I think of what God has done with putting Todd and I together, I look at, okay, so our books are right there.
Yeah.
So my first book, Water in the Desert, um, that book Todd illustrated.
Okay.
His fingerprints are all through my book. And then the publisher republished my book alongside Todd's book, Man Cave, the four men, the men's
Mhm.
devotional. How many men have been helped? The stories of the men have been helped through Todd's book is incredible. And
Amazing.
then, yeah. And then there was the blog, then the Soul H2O, and then
The
the Soul
radio
H2O
show.
book,
Yeah, yeah.
you know, and then the radio show and all this. And we just actually, for the first time ever, I have looked at my stats. Your wife actually helped me with my website,
Yeah.
redesign my website. And so she was just showing me where to find the stats, and actually took the time to put them in and realize that God is entrusting us. It's not just me now. I have a team of volunteers that help
Mhm.
me in the ministry, but we reach 34,000 women a month
That's
between all the
insane.
different
Yeah.
ministry avenues, over 412,000 in the last year, every year, doing this, over 1.5 million connection points, at least with women last year alone.
Wow,
So
Sherry.
if I would have continued to sit on the ash heap,
Yeah.
how many women would have stayed in their brokenness too?
That's what I
So
was
it's
saying.
just,
Imagine what wouldn't have happened if you had just sat there and said, "Oh, woe is me, life is awful." But look at what God has done, you know? And you were mentioning about some of these women that you met in divorce care and how some of them are still
mm,
kind of stuck there. And we don't judge them because we've all been on
no,
that pile for a little bit longer than we've needed to be. But it's so
yeah.
easy to stay there because at least it's comfortable. You're
Mhm.
angry, you're hurt, but you know how to be hurt. You know how to be angry. You know how to feel less than, and you just kind of you learn to operate on what you think is a new normal. But
Mhm.
I mean,
And
how?
some of them,
Sorry.
endured more than I ever did.
Yeah.
There's no judgment there, because
No,
honestly,
no,
it is
no.
work to get off the ash heap, whatever your ash heap is,
Yeah.
whatever the struggle is from your life. Um, so yeah, it's a struggle. So it's not easy, but man, if you don't, it is not just your life that is affected, because every person who gets off of that ash heap is going to totally impact someone else's life, like
That's
you're
right.
doing, with everything. So I just, even if it's just for yourself, like I look at how much healthier I am, what I've, in my married life now and with my
Mhm.
kids. And I just, it's all worth it there. But then to be able to, impact other people's lives, which your life is going to impact people regardless.
Right.
Everyone leaves a legacy. Some people
Right.
say, do you want to leave a legacy? Well, you are going to leave a legacy. That's
Yeah, it's
not a
just good or
question.
bad.
Yeah. It's just, what are you going to leave?
Well, I mean, you started to talk about the next question is, like, so how important is it to get off your ash? Because it's so much easier just to stay there. So how important
Um,
was it for you personally to get
I
off?
would say it was life altering.
Mhm.
It was life giving. And I would go so far as to say it was life saving.
I was gonna say
I
that,
don't
Sherry.
know, like I was
Life-saving.
so
Yeah.
low. And then when my daughter was going through depression and I was, the first book I decided to write it because God was speaking to me to write it.
Mhm.
When I was laying on the couch, desperately depressed about my daughter, and like I don't know. I feel like it saved my life to be able to
Yeah.
get off the ash heap. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what would have happened.
Yeah, I found it life-saving as well because, like, I actually started to get physically ill from sitting on my ash. It
Yes.
was actually was hurting my own body, the
Hmm.
anxiety, the stress,
Hmm.
the suppression, the repression of memories. I didn't
Oh
realize
yeah.
what was happening. Like, why am I sick all of a sudden? I'm having all this stuff going on, and it was literally killing me. And if I'd stayed on my ash, I probably would have had a heart attack or something else would have happened to me. I write about this in the book. I mean, I even became suicidal. Like, I thought it through. Of like, how do I do it in a way that insurance is still going to take care of my family? I mean, it was, it was a big dark pile. And I'm glad you said it, life saving.
Oh
And
yeah.
sometimes it's
Absolutely.
physical, sometimes it's emotional. We can die emotionally. We can become so numb if we just sit on the ash for too long.
Yeah. No, it definitely affected me health wise. I ended up twice in the hospital with bleeding ulcers.
You too. Okay.
It stress takes a toll on your body. Absolutely takes a toll on your
100%.
body. So, when we don't deal with it, staying on the ash heap is dangerous for your health in so many ways. And you put your life at risk by staying there. It seems
Mm,
like
that's
the
good.
easier road. And in some ways it is, but it's not really, because it's like,
Yeah.
that slow death kind of thing, where things just go bad and you might not even recognize what's the root of it, because things will just creep into your life bit by bit that
Mm.
are ebbing away who you are, what you are, and your health.
I'm so glad that we actually kind of stumbled onto that topic because I don't know how many shows we're in now. We haven't talked about this with anybody before. The
Oh,
the health factors and risks
huge.
of staying on your ash. We always think of emotional and spiritual and mental, but there is that physical aspect as well.
Well, we're body, soul, and spirit,
That's right.
and you cannot separate them. You cannot. So, even
Mm.
down to you're not sleeping. When you're going through all that, you're usually not sleeping. I know I had to go through a phase for a bit where I was taking some stuff to help me sleep, and
Hmm.
until I learned how to eat better and do
Yeah.
that, but and get stress out of my life and deal with the ash heaps in my life,
Keeps.
you know,
Yeah.
yeah. And then when you're not sleeping, your body's not rejuvenating. It can't
Yeah. It's
heal
a,
like
it's a
God
vicious
designed it
circle.
to,
Yeah. Yeah.
because you're not getting the rest that it needs in order to do that. So it affects everything in your life. And that's why I say, like, yeah, literally, it is life saving that you get your butt off that ash heap. You don't allow yourself, surround yourself by people who are going to continually
Bam.
help you move off. and not just keep going back there, because I know I had to make a decision to like remove myself from close contact with some
Yeah.
people because they were helping me to stay in that, to, just kind of sit there and lick your wounds
Yeah.
instead of, being around people that pushed me out of my
Yeah.
comfort zone. So I chose to force myself to be around those types of people.
This is so great. We're going into new territory here with Sherry Stahl, because all the other guests, they've all had valid, points of view and brought a lot of illumination. But this health aspect, and now what you're talking about, where removing yourself from that toxic situation that keeps you down. The last two chapters, I forget the order. It's kiss your ash goodbye and
Mhm.
kick your ash.
Yeah.
It's removing people who are constantly putting you back on that pile of ash. Passive aggressiveness, backhanded compliments, all these little snide remarks that just take these little digs, and you slowly are
Yeah.
bleeding out. And you're like, what's going on? And then the Christian in us saying, oh, we have to make peace with everybody and be friends with everybody. But we have that right to say, no, I love you, I pray for you, but over there, like,
Yeah. And when,
you
when
know,
we logically look at Jesus and how he behaved, he did not act like a doormat, like we say, oh, a Christian should be like. He did not. He absolutely did not. He withdrew from the crowds. He spoke up when people said things wrong to him. He actually called people vipers. So that'd be like, you snake in the grass. Like,
yeah,
he stood up for himself. And
thank you for
I
saying that.
honestly, it was
Yeah.
one day too, even seeing that in scripture, thinking about, he just called them vipers. Like, literally, that'd be the equivalent to saying you're a snake in the grass, that we would say nowadays. Um, so not that you go around and telling people off, but
No.
that you stand up for yourself. And because I think, if we be this wishy-washy, wimpy person that just takes it all and keeps taking it, who's ever going to want to become a Christian? Like, who wants to sign up for that? No,
That's true.
that's not, that's not what they were going to want. But getting to the point where we have a confident faith, not a cocky faith,
Yeah,
but a
not arrogant.
confident
Yeah, I
faith.
hear you. I hear you. Yeah.
Mhm.
No, go ahead. Having this
Yeah, no, I think
confident faith. Yeah.
it changes it. And I feel like that's where I've gotten to in my life, where I hope I will grow more into.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, but that's my ministry. My goal is to help other women to take the same journey that I've taken, and to help them to, grow stronger in their faith, their identity, which always leads them towards their destiny and helps them not crumble under the struggles of life,
Mm.
because of that confidence in who they are in Christ. So that's what I hope I can, bring to the table and share with people. And, I love that God could take what I've gone through and
Mm.
use that to help people. And, that there would be some sort of purpose in the pain that I went
So
through,
the Romans verse you quoted,
makes it a little bit better.
maybe he does use it after all.
Yeah.
Because you said earlier you were going to throw the Bible against the wall saying he doesn't use it for my good, but maybe he does, right?
Absolutely, 100% he does. Yeah, let's make sure we end with that yes, he
Yeah.
absolutely does it. And you don't realize, my one friend said to me in the worst part, and I think I wanted to throttle her. She said, just remember, when a teacher gives a test, they stand silent. And I was like, don't want to hear that right now. And I didn't like it when she said it. It bothered me greatly. But if you want to become a mature Christian, if you really want to grow in confident faith, you are going to go through times where it seems like God is silent. It seems like he's not working on your behalf. And the enemy wants you to believe that. But I promise you, I really promise you that he is working on your behalf. He is going to make everything work together for your good, because he loves you.
Absolutely. And I think we have to do our part too, and that's
Yeah.
why it's okay to protect yourself. Like I've had to make some
Mhm.
really tough decisions over the last 5, 6 years, people who I would consider to be really close personal friends. And then when you start getting off that pile of ash, you didn't realize how much they were the ones who were keeping you there.
Mm.
And you get to the place where like, you know what? it's me or you. Like, I got to choose my own physical, mental, spiritual, emotional health here, or else I'm not going to be any use to anybody,
Yeah.
and
And
so,
and
no, go
sometimes you
ahead,
just
Sherry.
need to
Go ahead.
distance. It's not
Yeah.
like you cut all people. Some of you have to cut out of your life because
Yeah.
they're just so unhealthy.
Yeah.
But I think for some, you just distance a bit and then just add more time in with those that are uplifting you and encouraging you and really challenging you to get off that ash heap.
See, now you know why we're hanging out with you and Todd more, because you're that second group of people. Like, we feed off of each other, we encourage each other, we rejoice with each other.
Mm-hmm.
Like when you say something is going great, I'll be like, oh, why is that going for Sherry enough for me? I'm like, wow, that's awesome. And I hear the same thing about Todd, and you guys feel that way, about us. And I think it's so important that we tell ourselves it's okay to do what's good for me sometimes. Like, it's all right to protect myself, because if I'm no good, then nobody's going to be good around me.
That's right. Absolutely. Well,
So,
we feel the exact same about
yeah.
you and Karen. It is just a life-giving relationship.
Yeah. Well, I know we're going to see you guys soon, depending on
Yeah.
when people watch this. I'm going to be back at Brayside in July from the 6th to the 8th, talking about get off your ash. We're doing a 3-part series there at the camp.
Yeah.
And I don't know where I was going to go with that. There was
I probably, I threw you off with my little cheering there, but I'm really excited about that because I want more people to hear about this. I know that the message that God's given you in this book can really help so many people. It's even helping my hubby get more off of his ash as he,
awesome.
in this, and he's speaking at a conference or an event, not a conference, an event.
Good for him.
And going to share a bit more about how God is helping him and challenging him to even do more. So yeah, it's exciting what God is doing and using your newest book.
So you would say then the reward of getting off your ash is worth the risk.
100%. It's just, it is so worth every little struggle that it takes to get off of it. Not every little, they're big struggles. So let's not candy coat it, but it is so worth it. You have more to lose by staying on the heap.
That's a great word. And last comment then, to anybody watching or listening who is contemplating getting off their ash, but they know it's going to stir things up, it's going to bring up the pain, it's going to bring up, what would you say to somebody? So I want to do it, but I'm scared to get off my ash. What would you say to them, Sherry?
I would say get close to God, because if you get into his word, get into his presence, he will give you the strength every day. His word says that his grace is sufficient, and that means sufficient. So whatever your day is, he will give you what you need. His word also tells us that he gives us strength for our days. So whatever day you're facing, if you've got like problems at level 2, you'll have the grace to handle problems at level 2. But if your problems are a level 10, he will give you the grace, the strength for that day. But if you try to do it on your own, I think you will fall flat on your face, and it'll be a longer, more difficult journey. But if you really get in God's presence, let him work in you to change you from the inside out. It's not going to be easy. It's not going to be easy, but it will be easier. And he will give you the strength to face everything that you're going to have to face in order to get off of that ash heap, and then to start climbing mountains and doing great things with your life. So that would be my encouragement to anyone. If you are just considering that it's time for you to get off your ash heap, absolutely, now is the time. Literally today. Don't wait for tomorrow. Make it today. Do something that's going to help you to get off your ash heap.
So is Sherry Stahl telling my listeners to get off their ash?
Yeah.
I want to hear you say it.
Oh, you need to get off your ash.
Folks, you heard it straight from Sherry, who got off her ash herself. And it's been amazing to see what God has done in her life. And we know that we're not special. We're no better than anybody else. We just made a decision to get off our ash, to deal with everything that we had been through. and to see what life can be like on the other side of that pile of ash. There's freedom, there's victory, there's reward, there's future. So Sherry, thank you so much for, being vulnerable today and sharing your story with, our audience. And I know that people today, because of you, are going to get off their ash.
Oh, I really hope so, Joe. And thank you so much for having me on.
Thanks so much for joining us on today's podcast. We hope you found it informative and encouraging. For more information about Get Off Your Ash or to order the book, you can visit www.getoffyourash.today or just search it out on Amazon.